Off top, male penguins propose to their mate by finding the smoothest pebble they can find and presenting it to him. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
All right, Charlie, welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show. I'm joined, as always, by the vanilla snack, Charlie Kravitz. How right am I? Or how right have I been so far in these finals, Charlie? The rightist or the rightiest?
You're on the far right.
Damn it. How'd you win that?
I don't know. So we just saw the Drew Holiday game as the Celtics beat the Mavs by 7 despite shooting around 26% from three and having an incredible Luka Doncic game where he was 32, 11, 11, and the Mavs role players just didn't show up. Drew Holiday was incredible. The Celtics are now 34-1 when he scores at least 14 points. He scored a lot more than that tonight. He had 26, and I'm firmly hoping that Jason Kidd goes to his post-game press conference and says Drew Holiday is their best player. That's why we're worried about him. What did you feel watching that game?
Yeah, I mean, I felt vindicated. But aside from that, is it terrible when like sports talking guys talk about how right they were and then pretend like they are never wrong because I'm always wrong all the time? But it does feel good to see these things pan out the way. I found myself rooting for the Celtics, something that you never expected.
You would have been insufferable if Josh Allen had been bad.
Something you would have never wanted to hear or you never want to do, but they play a brand of basketball that an old man like me appreciates. It's very egalitarian. And to your point, Drew Holiday stepped up, and you don't know who's going to be the guy in any game. It feels like everyone steps up in their moments, but you only need them for like certain stretches. Like we had the big block in from White. He hit a couple threes. We had the Porzingis early first half. Porzingis
8
unleashed
points in the first quarter.
Just like in the first game where it's like a spurt. It does feel very much like, and to your credit, I'll say that you are among the first people that are like midway through the NBA season. You said that this Celtics team reminded you of the Pistons who won a championship.
Yeah.
And it's that's what I keep seeing that in my head when they pop up. Is another great defensive team that had a guy in Chauncey who was the kind of key guy, but he wasn't like a superstar like that. And this feels a lot like that, where different people step up. Sometimes it's Tayshaun Prince, sometimes it's Rip, sometimes it's Wallace, and this feels very similar in what we're getting here. And it's just a great defensive team that can switch everywhere.
Great defensive team, endless offensive options. It seems like first of all, we see this with certain NBA teams. When you have 5 guys who can put the ball on the deck and create offense, it's just so hard to guard when the ball's pinging around and guys are in rotation and they're blowing by every single Maverick in front of them. Luka was the one who got picked on a lot with that tonight. Despite how spectacular he was offensively, it felt like drive by Luka, receive help from the Mavs,
right,
rinse and repeat, create a corner look, create a driving kick over and over and over again. I won't take the erasure of Peyton Pritchard. He had his moment tonight as well. Your man, Fast PP.
Fast PP out there looking like a coach's son.
Banking in that 45-footer at the end of the third quarter.
Yeah, he poked the ball away from Kyrie one time, and that arena erupted. He hit a couple other good shots. But, yeah, I think the interesting thing about watching this team, and we talk about like styles of offense and defense that work well together. I think they shoot a lot of threes. They create a lot of open looks, in part because they have so many like versatile players. Like even Porzingis can drive and kick, and everyone can drive and kick. Everyone can catch and shoot. So they do this stuff repetitively that creates the most like valuable shot in the game. It's like open threes. Even if it's not corner threes, they get open threes. And when they don't fall, they can rely on the fact that their defense is so malleable and intense that no one's going to pull away from them when they're cold. And the fact of the matter is, if anybody in the NBA gets as many like clear looks at three as they're going to get, sooner or later they're going to start falling. And in this game, they didn't fall all that well.
But
they still
25.8% of their threes.
They still were in the game the entire time, and it felt like we said it before the commentators started to say it, but they were saying it the whole time, where it's like, oh, they're not even hitting their threes, and they're still close. And then all of a sudden, they're not hitting their threes, but they have the lead. And then there's just series of great stops that turn to transition easy buckets. And it felt a lot like the first game, even though was it a blowout, it felt a lot like they were in control the entire time.
Yeah, they didn't make the threes. They still made 4 more of them than Dallas did.
Right.
Which makes a big difference. Let's go through a couple of the narratives.
Okay.
You feel the series is over?
Yeah. We got in trouble with doing this. I think the worst place was the Western Conference Finals, where it was over.
The Nugget series.
The Nuggets series.
Yeah.
Nuggets that wasn't the finals, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The semis and the Nuggets T-Wolves, where it was like, oh, it's over in the Nuggets' favor. Then we're over in the Wolves' favor. And then back to the Nuggets, and then the Wolves win it. This one doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like there's a potential answer. They won't get swept. I imagine they'll find a way to get a game. But it just seems so, I don't want to be a broken record from last week, but it seems so laborious on the offensive side of the ball for a team in the Mavs who seemed to be able to get good, clean shots at will at every other time in this playoffs, that it seems that there is nobody to pick on that Celtics D. And like we just mentioned about the offense for the Celtics, it's hard to stop. So it doesn't feel like there's an answer for this.
Yeah. I mean, in the last 47 years, there have only been 3 finals teams to come back from a 2-0 lead. The 06 Mavs Heat series, which had some incredibly questionable officiating to this day that we don't know how honest it was for that series to turn around. 2016 Cavs Warriors, which was a LeBron James masterclass and a penis punch that changed the series. And then 2021 Suns and Bucks, where Giannis and Drew Holiday erupted, and they were playing against Chris Paul, who's still addicted to playing in the finals. So the history tells us going up 2-0, particularly when you're the better team, the odds are immensely in the Celtics' favor.
It feels too early to talk MVP. It's too early to talk MVP stuff.
No, we can talk MVP.
MVP and legacy for Jason Tatum. So it seems obvious that it's going to be hard for Jason Tatum to win the MVP given what's happened so far. I guess he could go off in these next 2 wins, assuming the Celtics win. Are we going to look really stupid when the series is 2-2 coming back to Boston?
He's the no, we're not.
Okay. Just making sure before we go into this conversation.
He's the favorite to win the MVP right now.
Jason Tatum is.
Yes,
still
the betting favorite.
How's that possible? I mean, I guess because there is no other clear favorite, you still go with the best player, right?
Yeah, it's even money for him to win MVP. He had 18, 12, and 9 tonight. He did shoot 6 for 22 from the field. He was seemingly inefficient with the ball, and the shot selection was bizarre. The playmaking was really good. Drew Holiday credited him after the game because 6 of Drew's 11 buckets were assisted by Jason Tatum. He's obviously an excellent defender. He created a lot of offense by blowing by Luka Doncic. But, he's not beating the allegations. The Celtics are 6-0 and he shoots under 40% from the field. I'm sorry. I know he wants to do a Kobe impersonation, and if he had missed two more shots and gone 6 for 24, he probably would have had a press conference and been like, it's Game 7 Kobe. But this is different. We are not used to NBA stars winning the Finals MVP. If they give Jason Tatum this Finals MVP, we need to retroactively go back to 2015 and give the MVP to Stephen Curry. The one that we gave to Andre Iguodala for holding LeBron's 38 points a game.
The particularly difficult part about Jason Tatum Jason Tatum being the odds-on favorite to win the MVP is, whether we like to or not, there is some residual kind of value given to how a player has played through the course of the playoffs.
Superstar bias, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think, but the problem is for Jason Tatum is this whole playoff has kind of been the story of you're important to this team, but you are not like an A1 like we've traditionally thought of, which isn't a terrible thing. He's still going to get his ridiculous $300 million contract, and he's still going to be a popular player and still be considered the best player on that team. But it's pretty clear that if he's going to develop to a level above, he's not there yet.
Tatum could be awesome and still not deserve Finals MVP.
Right.
He hasn't played as well as Drew Holiday or Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And if we're going to do the spirit of the award of that, he's not the reason they're winning.
But that's my point. It's if you had a bunch of guys that were playing around the same level, and Jason Tatum was one of them, if Jason Tatum was also dominant for the other rounds of the playoffs, then we would have been like, hey, give it to Jason Tatum. Or even if he was at the same level as those guys.
Of course, yeah.
Like, hey, you give it to the best player on the team. Like, he's making it really hard. And I'm sure he doesn't care. It probably doesn't matter in the long run. At some point, maybe if he'll
I think
win
he cares.
Yeah.
Finals MVP is a big deal in the NBA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on the other side of it, Kyrie hasn't been good.
Yeah.
Whatsoever. He's averaging like 14 points a game on like 35% shooting in this series. Numbers almost identical to Boobie Gibson's number in 2007 finals when he was LeBron's running mate. I do want to point out, we talked to Chris Herring before the series, and we talked about how corner threes were going to be a huge part of it. During the regular season, the Mavs averaged 4.1 corner threes made per game. So far in the postseason, they've been up to 4.6. They've made 2 corner threes so far this series.
Jeez. Shout out Chris for giving us that insight, and shout out Celtics defense for clearly. And I know Chris pointed out also that Celtics defense was the best in the league at limiting corner threes. So they are winning the corner three battle and essentially dominating this series.
Yeah, I mean, it's been surprising how they've been able to stop those, because those are just part of the NBA game now, right. And limiting is, to be expected. Erasing is wild.
I think it was very clear that their approach on Doncic is to kind of force him to be a scorer.
Yeah, he had 11 assists in game.
Yeah, and he is getting those assists. He's getting those passes off, and I assume that the Celtics want to live with that. And that seems to be an effect. Like P.J. Washington, I guess that's how they approach it. P.J. Washington's not going to beat us. Like they are forcing him to make ridiculous passes, and he's doing it. The passes are incredible, and he still managed to score. What did he end up with, 33?
32, 11, and 11.
Yeah, so he's playing great, but it's not enough, and he is not playing great on the other end. He can't stay in front of it.
You're saying the game plan is that it's wear his out on defense. That's what it seems like. I mean, Lively minutes were bad. Maxi Kleber minutes were bad. Josh Green minutes were bad. The Mavs don't have the bodies comparatively.
Dante Exum
minutes were okay.
Okay.
I thought he did okay out there. That was a stretch in there, keeping it tight. If we're giving shout outs, can we talk about how incredible Brad Stevens is in putting this together? Because he stole Drew Holiday after the Damian Lillard trade, sent him to Portland. He stole Derek White. He didn't steal Derek White. He traded first round picks for him, but he evaluated and got Derek White and had him develop and helped him develop, I'm sure, in the system into becoming like an elite two-way player. He got Porzingis off the Washington scrap heap. And he got 2 first-round picks for trading Marcus Smart to Memphis, which facilitated a ton of this. Porzingis did leave the game with an aggravated calf, but still, like, it's incredible how he's able to remake this roster. We talk about the second apron so much now in the NBA. He remade this roster around the fringes with trades for players that we were not looking at when we look at superstar trades around the league.
If they win, we've already assumed that they're going to win. We also need to give Joe Mazzulla some credit for the improvements that he's made from last year this year, all the way through, like from this earlier in this season to at this point.
I also just I love it in football when you get someone like Dan Campbell, who's just a complete weirdo. Like having Joe Mazzulla in our life rules. That guy is so weird.
Yeah, I think this is interesting.
I love him.
It's interesting from a future of the game standpoint, and that there's been a long time where I think you think of the head of an organization's basketball side as the head coach, and it feels clear that that's not the case in some places.
Boston, Oklahoma City.
Miami. I guess Spo's a great coach, but like it feels like Pat Riley, for the large portion of his time there, maybe Spo has overtaken him, but Pat Riley was like the orchestrator of that, and still probably is.
Yeah,
it's just an interesting thought because we look at baseball where it seems clear that the general manager runs the teams and the managers kind of are middle management, whereas they're not like that in football.
Pat Riley, tough times getting his worn out by Jimmy Butler this offseason.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler flirting with the Lakers. I didn't even know the Lakers were on the table, but he's out there talking about how good 22 looks in purple and gold.
Yeah, he's a Sparks game. Cameron Brink does wear number 22, so he was able to play it off, but still, it's so ridiculous. I mean, look, tired, Pat Riley. Wired, Joe Mazzulla.
Yeah, I watching Joe Mazzulla, I can't wait for Joe Mazzulla to get the microphone.
The parade.
Oh, it's going to be nuts.
The parade is going to be incredible.
No, Joe Mazzulla's not. He's not going to be. He's going to be locked in. He's going to be running back guy. He's going to be immediately after the championship, start focusing on winning it back to back. That's clearly who he's going to be. He's not going to be let your hair down, get drunk, say crazy stuff.
I mean, he's definitely going to say crazy stuff. Every press conference he does, he says crazy stuff.
Since we're not Celtics fans, I assume we're not capable of jinxing them. But if we were, this is the jinxiest first segment's ever been done.
Oh, no, we're going to jinx Jason Tatum. He's going to shoot 6 for 50 next game.
All right, enough of that. Let's talk about Caitlin Clark. All right, we're back, Charlie. Let's figure out a way to talk about one of the world's most popular athletes in a way that does not annoy both of us. You think we can pull that off?
Yeah, we have been steering clear of the Caitlin Clark conversation of this podcast for a while, just because it's probably been talked about too much. It's become incredibly polarizing.
Yeah, and it's been talked about in a disingenuous way, which has
yeah.
been not fun or interesting. It's just been upsetting.
Do you feel gaslit? I feel gaslit.
Yeah, I didn't want to be a part of the gas or the lighting, but we're going to find a way to do it without participating in the uglier parts of this conversation.
Okay, so here's the news peg that came up is the U.S. Women's Olympic team was released. Caitlin Clark wasn't on it. Of course, this has been an incendiary moment for everyone who has opinions about Caitlin Clark. And it got us thinking, why is Caitlin Clark becoming a generational lightning rod? Yeah. When we were talking about it earlier today, it seems like she's entered the zone of the Tiger Woods scandal, Tim Tebow, LeBron post-decision. I don't know, maybe there was a point when Serena was like this where there was just a conversation where people were way too quick to either compliment or criticize her. But why do you think that is? Because this is someone who has said nothing or done nothing to sort of warrant the generational lightning rod tag.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not even Tiger post scandal or Tiger scandal. It's like Tiger originally. I think Tiger and Serena are the players or the athletes that I think come close to this, in large part because they are, in many ways, more popular than their leagues in their sports, and they're bringing audience to their sport in a way that no one else has. I don't know if there are other names that you can think of that fall into this category, but like by and large, we didn't watch golf as a country. It felt to me like a fringe sport, and maybe it was different for other people, but something happened when Tiger showed up, and then we all showed up, and then combined with the fact that he looked different and he was better than everyone else.
Yeah, the sheer athleticism was totally different. Yeah, it's crazy.
But I mean, not even, I'm just saying he's black.
Yeah.
Or not he looked different. You don't see color? That was the most I don't see color I've ever heard in my life.
That was completely genuine.
I know. He's like, no, he swings so fast.
That might have been the funniest way that could have possibly done. I was like, damn, his swing was like a metronome.
Yeah, he played differently for people who cared and understood it. But I think that it had something to do with the racial dynamics of it. And I think the same thing is true for Serena. And the same thing is true for Caitlin Clark in a different way. And I think those things, because everything in our society and American society in particular is like the country is founded on racism, frankly. Like almost everything that's this explosive has to have a divide that's significant. And maybe Tebow falls into this because religion is something that can evoke so much emotion. But the idea of Tim Tebow coming to football is different because football is enormous. Tim Tebow showing up to professional football is interesting, but he's not bigger than football.
Yeah.
And Caitlin Clark, I think the numbers would kind of bear this out.
College basketball went up. The women's ratings went up 378% because of Caitlin Clark.
She's kind of bigger than college basketball.
Indiana Fever have already sold more tickets at the gate through the first 5 games of this season than they did all of last season.
Yeah, she's kind of bigger than the game. And the ratings, I assume, are to the degree that we have seen them this early in the season, those I'm guessing are up too.
There were, we'll get those over time, I'm sure, but there were more people at the Fever Mystics game in DC than there were at Game 1 of the NBA Finals.
That's amazing. And that's Caitlin Clark. And so I think part of the lightning rod, part of the attention in lightning rod is drawn from that distinction. And that distinction was extra pronounced because of the 2 years back-to-back college basketball semifinals and finals games where there were like obviously strong racial, I would call them overtones. And
I think it was explicitly said after she waved off the shooter against South Carolina,
Right.
Raven Johnson.
Yeah, and Angel Reese took the other side of that and was unafraid to say, like, things are different for black women. I'm treated different because I'm black, and that brings a lot of people to the conversation that I don't know cared about it as much before. And the same thing was true for Caitlin Clark, whether she was courting it or not. And it seems like she explicitly wasn't courting it. She came to represent these things, and it made it more intense, more incendiary, more exciting, and more interesting. And now, whether we want to control it or not, all the people, and I think part of it is because the game is small in comparison to the figure, that these other things have garnered more engagement than the sport itself. And frankly, it's a really place to be if you're Caitlin Clark. And honestly, like, if you're anybody in this league that wants to be considered a basketball player and wants to enjoy whatever comes along with the attention that comes from you being good at your craft.
I normally make fun of you for we feel bad for this person.
Yeah.
We feel bad for Caitlin Clark. I mean, it really sucks. You can see it on her face. First of all, one of the things that we like about Caitlin Clark: style, swagger, competitiveness. I guess those are three things. It wasn't one thing that
That's
we like
all right.
about it.
You don't have to count.
Everything we knew about her was that she's a psychotic competitor and a killer. And even in the quotes for this Olympic thing, it seems like, because of the way that her presence in the WNBA has not been accepted and the way that she's become such a lightning rod, that's muted. Like, she went out there and was like, oh no, I'm not upset that I didn't make the Olympic team. Like, something to work for. Yeah. You know what Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant would have said if they didn't make the Olympic team? I respect it. I deserve to spot on that team. I know I'm good enough, and I'm going to show them. And you know that's what Caitlin Clark is thinking. Yeah. And anything we want as an athlete is we want that. We want style of play to be dynamic and revolutionary, which Caitlin Clark objectively is. We have the reason she brought eyeballs to this. Sure, there's a racial dynamic, but It's also, this is a revolutionary player in college basketball. This is not someone who's been given things undeservingly with sponsorships in the pros. This is probably the best women's college basketball player of all time, who set the scoring record, who dragged Iowa to back-to-back national championship games. And to see that sort of tamped down immediately because she's through 12 games and putting up, honestly, the numbers are like fine. I know she's turning the ball over too much and only shooting 37% from the field, but that's silly and unfortunate.
I get why this conversation, or why Caitlin Clark has become a lightning rod as we're having this conversation, because I know you're not saying certain things, but I am still hearing those things in my head. So, like, I'm certainly not accusing you of anything, but whenever you go through this conversation, and I was doing it too, where we're hyping up Caitlin Clark, saying that we feel sorry for her because she essentially had back-to-back college seasons where it felt like the entire, like, future of the sport felt like it was on her back. And then immediately from that, she goes into a WNBA season where it seems like there's even more attention. And immediately, or while I'm hearing us both, like, talk about that and talk about how sorry we feel her, I recognize that if I were a player who's been great and been keeping this league afloat for this whole time, like, this could be frustrating. The interest in the WNBA was climbing. Like, I remember tuning in for Aces versus Liberty games last year, not the whole games, but for portions of the game. And I remember it becoming a conversation. I mean, we tried to not have a conversation where it was going to get annoying.
This is why we got to put your Bass Pro Shops hat on and switch sides on this. This is the bit that never saw the light of day.
So my point is that I understand, and as a retired football player, and when I was an active football player, I remember how much the former players would be upset with us as the current players when I was a player, because they sacrificed. Mm-hmm. They went through much more difficult conditions than us, and it allowed us to get to a place where we could make some money. And we could look at them and say, like, tough. Like, we made adjustments to give money back to them because we did feel like we owed them something. So I see a similar dynamic in this, where it's like, all right, those former players, football players, they weren't great stars. They did deal with difficult things, and they did not get paid as much as they deserved. and it felt like there was some obligation to reward them for that. And I think that is one of the driving forces behind whatever tension that she's feeling from certain players in NBA. The unusual part about it is some of it feels like it's coming from Angel Reese, who is not one of those players. But I get why players in the league would be kind of like, I don't know, it seems logical to me. I could understand being in that position. I see it clearly from outside where it's like, hey guys, the Caitlin Clark effect is going to be good for everyone. I recognize that. But I also know if I was there, I'd be like, why you send this white savior in here like we ain't been in here grinding, doing work the whole time? Like,
I totally get that.
Okay.
I think it's significantly less frustrating that players are frustrated with Caitlin Clark than the media's interpretation of it.
Yeah.
That is a complete because what's happened as the media has taken this story, when things get polarized, there's a logical middle ground that you and I both stand on. And the side that we would normally fall on will tell you that is like offensive and not progressive enough. If you're sort of just like, oh no, I kind of like Caitlin Clark, I think she should be on the Olympic team. It's met with a how dare you. You're going to be pushed towards the side that you traditionally do not want to be on, and that's where the gaslighting begins.
So to the point of this original conversation about the Olympics itself is, like, I get why she's not on the team. You can see both sides on this.
Yeah,
I hesitate to act like I understand the sport enough to say, like, she doesn't deserve a spot or she does deserve a spot. But just looking at the raw stats and how young she is and all that stuff, like, I get why she's on our team. And honestly, to the point that we were making earlier, like, I feel like it'd probably be nice for her to not have to be in Paris and dealing with whatever's going on, because there was an anonymous player.
Two anonymous
players who are on the women's team who made it clear anonymously that they did not want Caitlin Clark on the team.
They did not want Caitlin Clark on the team because of worries about her fans and how they would react to her not getting a lot of playing time.
Yeah, so it might have been a tough spot for her. So that being said, there's the other side of this that is where we started, is her impact is undeniable. And while there may be a couple of players on the team who don't want her there, and the 5-person selection committee chose not to put her there, I'm pretty damn sure Nike wants her there. I would guarantee you that NBC wants her there. I promise you that the WNBA wants her there, because her effect on the attention that's drawn to the game is undeniable. So we end up in a spot where we're going to have these Olympics and the women are going to blow out every team they play. But if I were a business mind in any of these places, I'd be bending over backwards trying to figure out how to get this unique star, and I wouldn't care the reasons why people were showing up. I know that when I put this ingredient into a broadcast, we get more viewers, which means more money and everything's better. And alas, we're at a situation where she's going to be home, resting up, hopefully not thinking about basketball.
Look, of all the Caitlin Clark controversies, leaving her off the Olympic team is the least problematic. Yeah. If you want to say she's not one of the 12 best players in the WNBA and that's what your cutoff is, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. Her stats are almost identical to Taurasi's down to shooting percentage. She's turning the ball over a little bit more. She's on a worse team.
Yeah.
Those things. Taurasi's also the best women's player of all time. Yeah. If you get a spot on this team because you are the GOAT, fine by me. Do I think it's short-sighted? Absolutely. It's an opportunity to, like, people have been begging viewers to be more engaged in women's basketball. And you have a chance to draw on all of these viewers to watch all of these incredible players, not just Caitlin Clark. The games probably would have been primetime slots on NBC, and who knows where they'll air now, whether it's on Peacock or the other streaming services for the Olympics. We'll see. That's just purely speculation. To the point you made before about the playing time and the fans, these players aren't going to be worried about what people are tweeting at them when they're in Paris for the Olympics. They're not going to be bothered by Caitlin Clark fans in the Olympics, and the playing time was not going to be an issue. It's so disingenuous. At the 2022 FIBA World Cup, the U.S. women's team won their games by an average point differential of 41 points. I would get burned on that team up by 41. Seriously, like that. Like, it's the U.S. women's basketball team is so far ahead of the rest of the world that the concept of playing time on this roster, that's not real.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is one of the things that comes up often when we talk about the big picture in sports is like the conflict between sports and business. When you get in professional sports, the further you get along in the development of your game, the further you get away from like the purists of sports models. And I think we all like imagine, not us, but fans, I think, like to imagine that sports is that pure form, like you were on your high school team and like, yeah, we're all really care. We're here for each other. And to some degree, that's true, but there are business factors that weigh into it. And it seems like they didn't weigh heavy enough in this situation.
They should have put her and Juju Watkins on the team. I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
Like, take the debate out of it. Be like, hey, we got the best college player also. Mm-hmm. She's not white. Deal with it.
And I would have watched. I love you.
Yeah,
totally.
That's
my daughter's favorite player. Anytime I try to turn on Caitlin or turn on Paige, my daughter's talking about Juju.
You want to develop stars for the league? Have Juju Watkins playing along Diana Taurasi when you're up by 64 over Belgium in the quarterfinal game for the Olympics.
Did we do it?
We did it.
We did it?
Yeah.
We still like each other?
I love you.
All right, I love you more. We didn't piss anybody off. We're not going to make any
sure
blogs.
We pissed someone. We'll talk about what needs to get cut from this pod after we finish it.
I love it. All right, Charlie, that was awesome. Thank you for that. I know you're very uncomfortable. I saw your face getting red. It was great. Awesome. And they will never know. Anyway, thanks, Charlie, for being here. Thanks to all my great producers, Serafina, Brian, Kevin, Tez, and I love you, Podville. We out.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.